You are listening to Real Men Feel with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but all men can benefit from. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. We are, slowly but surely, I don't know about that, true, but we're making our way through the pandemic and through life itself. And as part of this show and everything that I've shared on social media, I've been inviting everyone to take this time because this is time. Most people have been given this gift of time that they haven't had before, and take it as an opportunity to go within, to do some soul searching, to find out what you really miss, what you don't want to go back to, right? Don't just be one of those people that I can't wait to get back to normal if you didn't even like what normal was, if normal didn't feel good, right? So I hope you're taking the time to do a little inward journeying, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm really excited about the conversation today. My guest today is a soul guide, author, healer, and podcaster, Kerri Hummingbird. Kerri inspires people to lead their lives wide awake with an authenticity, passion, and purpose that positively impacts others. She is the best-selling author of The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama, and Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love. She is the founder of the Skills Not Pills movement and host of the Soul Nectar Show, which I recently had the pleasure to be on. So Kerri, it's great to welcome you, and so I welcome you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here with you. I loved our conversation last time.
Yeah, and so I always talk with people before being a guest, so we had a pretty good long conversation initially, and then it was on your show. So yeah, I feel like I've talked to you like 4 or 5 times, and like, what am I saying this time? What's going on? Maybe that's why I kept spitting out the introduction so bad.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, ideally it was to go talk about that journey within, that spiritual path, that awakening, that work that you do. And I know that you've lived it, and then you help others get to it. So, maybe we should start at the beginning and like what got you first interested in personal growth and development and spirituality and realizing we're more than just this bag of bones.
It's so funny because I feel like I've been on this self-growth journey since, early on, really early. I mean, I went to my first child psychologist at 2. So I had some childhood trauma from like 0 to 5, and I was biting my arms and like leaving these red welting marks on my arms because there was a lot of chaos in my mother's life and the fathers that I had that she introduced me to, the things that were going on in my early life were very traumatic. And so I was in child psychology early. And then, my teenage years got chaotic, as they do for all of us, right? We all have chaos in our teens. And then I started going to a child psychiatrist because of the trauma that I was self-inflicting harm on myself. So much like you were talking about, I wanted to commit suicide. I relate to you on that part of your journey. My suicidal ideation began in my teenage years. So I started with a psychiatrist, and at that point they didn't do drugs and all that because I'm 50, almost 51 now. So that drug psychiatrist, correlation didn't start until sometime after I started seeing one. So I think I've been on this exploration most of my life, but I would say that the journey really took a big shift when I gave up on the Western medical model and I said, you know what, this model doesn't work for me. There's something else, because all it's doing is making me feel like there's something wrong with me or I'm bad or I need to be fixed. It's not like helping me come to wholeness or like want to be here. So something else needs to happen. And that was really the beginning of my journey. I had been labeled and diagnosed like from 14, and then I got a label that I didn't like at all from, my psychologist, that it was borderline personality disorder. This is a pretty tough one, I mean, at the time on Wikipedia, it was like the example was, Glenn Close boiling rabbits, so that's no bueno.
I've had that one myself. Yeah. And that's the one thing that turned me off every label was every time I ended up hospitalized after a suicide attempt, I had a different label. never matched. Like no one could agree. But that was one of my stopping points too, borderline.
Yeah, and the Wikipedia, I don't know if you ever looked it up on Wikipedia. I looked it up, like, this was back, the definition, of course, has changed because we're so much more conscious and loving now. But, you know, back when I got mine, it was like, what, 10 years ago? The description on Wikipedia was horrid. It was just like, wow, I'm a terrible human being. So at that point, I was like, why do I even try? You know, I've been at this for decades. And it just keeps, the diagnoses just keep getting worse. The suicidal ideation has not stopped. I still don't want to be here, you know, and it's uncomfortable and it's painful. I'm drinking a bottle of wine a night, you know, like I'm just on with my meds, you know, of course, because how can you cope with the meds if you don't have the wine, and vice versa. So it was just a concoction. And at some point, it's just like I hit my own personal rock bottom. You know, I was in a marriage that was devolving. I was cheating on my husband. I was drinking copious amounts of alcohol. I was still going to psychotherapy, getting absolutely no regard. My tensions with my family were growing because they're like watching me just destroy my life. And, you know, I couldn't go any further with that. So I dropped everything. I just dropped it all. I said, well, that's the end of the rope. So I left the marriage and I stopped psychotherapy, and I just said, well, I'll just be bad. That's my new solution. I will just be bad and stop trying to be good, because trying to be good hasn't worked, you know, like, and not obviously. So I stopped for a while. And then a really interesting thing happened is I got on another track. So I got out of the Western medical complex track and I got into the spiritual track. And then things started to change rapidly because, number one, I was ready to change. Key ingredient, you know. Number two, I was open to any modality, any way, any path, anything that would bring me to a new place. Those two things, the curiosity and the willingness, started to open doors for me on my journey. And it's not to say that other people couldn't find that same willingness and an opening and benefit from Western medical. It just wasn't my journey. So yeah, so that really opened the doors, and I started studying and shamanism, and I got my first spiritual healing, which, you know, I never had one of those before. I don't know if anybody in the audience, like, that's a new thing for people. It was a new thing for me. I was like, I don't even know what to expect. It was powerful though.
When you were younger, and I mean, at age 2, it's hard to decide, yes, I want some help, but were you open to the help being offered? Did it just feel wrong? Were you talking in therapy? How was that experience?
Oh, I was highly engaged.
Okay.
I was highly engaged in the therapy. I was listening to what they were saying. I was like an A student, you know, like taking notes, you know, like, okay, like I'm gonna fix me, and, you know. But here's the thing, is that this concept that there's something broken or wrong with you, that is the kernel that I find is questionable in the Western medical model. The idea that the problem is a problem is questionable. And then the sort of like arcane tools for dealing with it is also a problem, as you know. Like, you know, slap a pill on it, you know, when the pill, what does the pill make you do? Stop feeling or stop being aware of the feelings is really more accurate. It's like it stops you from being connected to your body and connected to your feelings, which are really your primary modes of navigating life. When you're on the spiritual path, the realization is, oh, my emotions and my body and my sensations are navigating me toward the solution for whatever it is that I'm experiencing, or the new deeper level of understanding about myself.
Yeah. That's what I find like in this day and age, and when we were growing up, human beings are like so uncomfortable with uncomfortable emotions that we try to medicate them away, as opposed to find out, well, what's the root? Where are these coming from? What's causing me to not enjoy myself, or to think there's something wrong with me, or, you know, whatever it may be. But we're the medical model is covered up. Just bury every symptom so that you can continue being the automaton you were raised to be, whatever it might be. But That's what I wanted to drill down to, but your willingness, your curiosity, was it around in the Western model as well? It just those things weren't helping? Like, were you willing to do you sound like you did lots of different things, so you were open to suggestion at least.
I was open to suggestion, but at a certain point, the model, I feel like if you're using a modality and you're not shifting, then you need to change modalities. And the problem I think I experienced was that I stayed in a modality and that was not progressing me. Okay, so, and this is part of the illusion of self-help, okay, because what I realized is that as a person who's seeing that there's maybe a lack of acceptance or some lack, some feeling of lack that I want to overcome by seeking help, okay, then I'm going to be selecting the type of help or the professional to help me that is in alignment with the degree to willingness I have to change. Mm-hmm. So if my degree to willingness to change is very tiny, then I'm going to self-select a therapist or a support structure that sort of just lets me be whatever it is and doesn't challenge it at all, and just sort of like lets me drone on and on and on and pay my weekly session fees and just kind of keep going in the track I'm going without any disruption at all, right? Just like keep going where you're going. I self-selected therapists that I could tell myself, look, I'm working on myself. I go every single week. But I self-selected a therapist for like the last 10 years of my work in psychotherapy, where all she did was take notes the entire time that I was in the session. She just took notes. She didn't try to disrupt anything that I was doing. And I was doing some crazy stuff, and she would just take notes about it. That was it. So when I walked out of that model, I was like, this doesn't work. Okay, nothing's shifting. I'm stuck in myself. I'm stuck in these self-defeating patterns. I know they're hurting me. I know they're hurting my kids. I know they're hurting my partner. I can't, he's hurting me. I know, so we're hurting each other. I can't be in this relationship anymore. And I need to get out of the whole thing just to clarify. I need to get my own space. I just need to be inside my space to figure it out. Right? Get all of the distractions out and just focus on the one thing, which is me, to get it sorted, So that's what I did. I got everybody, I felt instantly better. The first night I was in my new place and I was in my bath with a bubble bath and my glass of wine and my candlelight. And I felt like I was on vacation because I was not in the dynamic that had been created over 20 years.
Of looking for a problem, thinking there's something wrong with you, and
having somebody, my partner, say, yeah, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. It's all your fault. Yeah. I'm not doing it. You're the problem. Look at you. You're the one who's acting crazy.
Yeah. So you're surrounded by people reinforcing the model that has been failing you for years.
Yeah. So what happened was I started branching out because my original plan was to just be bad and then meet Mr. Right. Knight in shining armor will just come and rescue me and I'll have the perfect life because obviously that dude sucked and there's nothing wrong with me and I'm just going to be me now. That didn't last because it's not true. And what happened was I branched out. I tried new things. I got outside my comfort zone. I started hanging out with a woman. My mom said, hey, you should hang out with Gina because she's been divorced for 10 years. And I hated that. I didn't want to hang out with somebody who'd been divorced for 10 years. But I leaned into it. I was like, okay, I don't want to take advice from my mom and I don't want to hang out with somebody who's been divorced for 10 years, but I'll say yes. So I leaned in, I said yes. I hung out with her. She taught me some cool stuff. She brought me to yoga classes, never been to yoga. I said, okay, I'll do yoga. Then I met with this yogi who is one of the teachers and I liked him because he did his classes to Led Zeppelin. And I was like, all right, I can hang with that. I'm being bad and I like Led Zeppelin and I like this teacher. So I asked him, hey, would you be my mentor? So he met with me and he said, yeah. And I thought I was going to be going into the same paradigm. I thought I was going to go in like the psychotherapy. I'm going to go in, I'm going to lay out all the reasons why I'm a victim and all this stuff just happens to me and I complaining because somebody's not doing what I want and and he went, you're doing that to you. First session. I was floored. My jaw was like, what are you saying? I'm doing this to me. What are you talking about? But I knew he was right. Just the clarity of truth that he spoke from to disrupt my pattern it disrupted it. And all of a sudden, like after the shock wore off, I looked at him and I said, I know you're right. What can I do about this? Because this has been going on for decades. So he started to help me break my own conditioning, and then I had the spiritual healing, which was like another modality I tried out, because I was like, well, I'll try anything, because now I realize I'm the problem. Like the way I've been thinking about me is the problem. The way I've been processing me, my stories I tell, that was the problem.
And so you realize you're the problem, but not that there's something wrong with you.
There's nothing wrong with me. It's how I'm dealing with it. It's like how I'm processing it. Thank you for clarifying that. It's like, it's me doing me in a way that's not serving me. That's the issue. It's like, if I could just learn a different way of being with me, then things could be a whole different experience. I could be excited by it. It could be the same exact conditions, and I could be like, this is great. So I started opening to realize that through working with him. And then I had the spiritual healing, and it was profound, because one of the things it really did is it also jarred me out of an idea that I had. I had this idea that I was this one thing, like this one organism, like just one solid thing. And in the healing, he took energy out of me, and I could feel him take the energy out and flick it and put it in a burning sage dish. And my mind was blown. I was like, what are you talking about? That means I'm not just one thing. I'm a bunch of stuff, and you can take some of it out and you can't even see it, but you could feel it. Like you could feel that stuff leaving. And it wasn't temporarily gone. It was gone for good. Like I've never had those. He took out this energy around my heart that was really like black and stuck, and it would cramp around my heart when someone looked at me funny or didn't like me. I know now that he took out shame that was around my heart that didn't belong to me. He took it out. It was my mom's shame from an early incident in my childhood trauma. And I took it on trying to help, because little kids love to help, and it wasn't my energy. So I could never process this energy because it doesn't belong to me. But I took it. So he took it out of me and put it in that burning dish. And I never felt that feeling again since. I have never felt it. It's gone permanently, which is a really radically different experience than I had with psychotherapy, where I could go to the session and I could get some relief by talking about the stuff that was going on. But the aching feeling never went away. It was like right back. Like I would feel like I made progress, and then I was right back in the problem.
Yeah. It's kind of like you keep kicking the symptoms and signs of a problem around and around and around, playing with them. But then when you got the energy work, really like, that's what opened my eyes too. With like, you change your energy, you change your life. And we talked previously, like we were both really empathic kids, and I didn't even know that wasn't a word I knew as a kid. But yeah, I was picking up, and to try to be someone's friend, you'd hold on to their bad, shitty feelings for a while, not knowing it. And you're holding on to your mom's pain because you want to support your mom, and all these things that build up over time. But yeah, your local doctor doesn't know about this, or if they keep it to themselves, I don't know.
They're keeping it to themselves if they know about it. But I think it's just so amazing to me that ever since that realization, and I would say that began my path of realization, it was like, whoa, I just realized I'm not one thing. Oh, I just realized that, these challenges that we face in modalities like psychotherapy, and you feel like you're banging your head up against the wall and you just can't solve this thing and you're stuck, that if you remove some energy around, you would understand it. Yeah. Like all of a sudden there'd be an opening to understand that thing. It was like, wow. So like if I take some energy out that's related to that thing, all of a sudden I can make some progress on this thing I'm trying to understand about myself. You're kidding, right? No, that is exactly what I've learned. So it's been fascinating, this new journey. And the thing I love about it is that it's, as much as I'm talking about it and as much as I know you talk about it, it's still intangible, ephemeral, and beyond comprehension of the human mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, whenever I'm trying to explain, energy work is much better experienced than explained.
Yes.
Yeah, we could talk about it for 6 hours. Still, someone at home like, I don't get it. Like, you have to have the experience. You have to have that jaw drop. You have to like, oh my God, I feel different. What was this? And that, wakes you up and realizes that you're not just chemicals. You're not just this random, science experiment. Your energy, and it moves and it's alive, and you can have energy that's not yours, or energy that doesn't serve you anymore. It's like outgrown energy, and we have an energy body in addition to every other aspect of ourselves. But until you have an experience of it, good experience, I think so many people experience it, the negative effect of it, and don't know what it is. That weight, the shame around your heart, right? Not wanting to be seen, not knowing you're supposed to do something, but afraid to ever even ask what that might be. So people are used to the negative or the downside of being an energy body, but there's it's so much more to the upside once you do realize and have that experience. So,
yeah, and that's what people are saying when they say, wake up. That's what they mean. They mean wake up to the realization that you're not just a physical body. Wake up to the realization that, God, source, creator, spirit is not out there. It's permeating everything. Wake up to the realization that through your energy, that you are energy, and through that energy, you have access to everything that is. Like, you're in connection with all the plants, all the animals, all the oceans, all the fire, everything. You're it. Like, it's like this, and it's a dawning realization, because if you came to that realization all at once, it would be so shocking that you'd want to go to a mental asylum. I think that's why people are in mental asylums sometimes, is because they wake up so quick that it's shocking to their system. Like, they can't receive that much information. It's too quick. So I like gradual, I prefer the gradual, like, personal practice path of, like, awakening, as I know you do, because you teach these mystery school teachings. It's like, this is the way for a gradual, grounded, earth embodied awakening experience that doesn't jar you to the point where, you need to, like, be put in a straitjacket,
right? Because we're still here. We're human beings. We're in physical form. So I know when I first really discovered things, like, I would meditate for 6, maybe up even, I think 6, maybe even 8 hours a day, just because I just want to be energy. I just want to be spirit. I'm done. Like, I found I'm not just
physical thing.
Yeah. Can I just check out now that I've learned this lesson? Like, am I done?
I could be done with this body.
Yeah.
No, but then the next level begins, because it's like a process. You've got to go through the process, right? You've got to go through the process of first thinking, or in total amnesia, and thinking all you are is this body, and then you're like, this sucks. It's heavy. It's dense. It's yucky. It's like so personal. Everything is personal. It's painful. And it's this terrible thing, but wonderful too. And it's good, so it's like that really intense thing of being physical. And then you awaken, you have the realization of, like, oh, wow, I'm like energy and physical. Like, so I have a place to escape this physical thing, So then you go into the process of spiritual bypassing, right? You go into that place of, like, I'm going to go to the big spirit stuff because it feels better out there than in here. I like it. I like that expansive space. And so a lot of people meditate for hours. Like you said, they go to the mountaintop. They, like, go on retreats. They go, just to get anything to get samadhi, anything to get samadhi and just get the hell out of here. Like, this body sucks. Then you come inside the body is the ultimate spiritual divine experience. Is the embodiment of your spirituality that your physical vessel is your temple. It's your temple within which the choirs sing and the stained glass shines. This is the ultimate divine experience. This physical embodiment with the absolute knowing of your divinity in every cell. Like, every single cell of your being is the all-seeing eye. It's like you are that. And then your whole life becomes this sort of amazing discovery process of what more can I create as the creator itself embodied in my being as part of all that is. So it's a very delicate process to get through all these steps, because there's some very personal stuff that needs to be released and then re-embodied in a new way, released and reknown, right? So, like, all your history up until now isn't thrown out like trash. It's not, like, discarded. It is at first, because you're like, get that thing off me. I don't want to be that anymore. But then through the process of self-discovery and self-love, you go back and you reclaim all of yourself, and you say, oh, wait a second, that made me who I am. That made me who this vessel is. This is divine. It was perfectly imperfect. I reclaim it all. I take it all back. I say, yes, this is me. I love every bit of it. And one by one, you reclaim everything, even all the traumatized pieces that you ever were. It's like calling it home and saying, I love you. Thank you. This has been a beautiful experience. So all of that takes time and processing and effort.
Says it does all take time and effort. Is there one particular modality that you have found that works the best, or is it different for everybody, or is it got to be something that people do discover? Is it the right situation, the right person? Like how does it all come together?
Well, what I've found on my journey is, first of all, it's self-guided. So it's your journey, and your journey is not like anybody else's. So, and it's an evolving journey. So, as you keep evolving, you'll need new things like new mentors, So I think it's helpful to have mentors because it's, you can get lost a little in the woods of the egoic consciousness. It's very slippery and tricky, and it's got lots of little doors and hatches, and it's all designed to protect you, so it's not a bad thing. It's designed to protect you from yourself, really. So in order to get free of that and really embody all this consciousness I'm talking about, these different realizations, you've got to be able to navigate your journey for yourself while bringing to yourself all the resources that would be pertinent for you in the moment to get to the next realization along the path. And I do believe there's a series of revelations that we each receive in a unique way that lead us on a very similar path. I think it's a very similar path that we go on, but the uniqueness of the path is what's cool, so everybody has a unique experience of the revelation as it arises. So yeah.
Like, because in the biggest respect, we're all learning the same thing, but it's all going to be experienced different ways, and there are different blocks into realizing that the truth of who and what we are, and that we're all connected, and we're not just this. We're not broken, right?
We're not broken. We're perfectly imperfect. So it's like there's always these paradoxes, and so the spiritual journey, I think, is being able to embrace the paradoxes as equally valid, both sides of the paradox, simultaneously valid, and to be okay with that your mind can't process it. Being okay with the fact that your mind's like, I don't get that. It's all right. Your mind doesn't have to get it. It's all true at the same time. Just like all things in time are happening now. And so that can get confusing as you open on your spiritual path, because as you open on your spiritual path, you have realization that this isn't your only time in the rodeo. Like, you have realization you had other lifetimes. And then as you open to the realization you had other lifetimes, those realizations come to you now, and they feel very personal and very saturated and very like, oh, wow, ouch. I really feel that lifetime, because it's all happening now. It's just the awareness and the realization of it is your perception of it, and your perception of it leads to, your experience of it.
So your most recent book is The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama. So is what we've been talking about so far, is that all the human drama?
Yeah, it's kind of like the human drama when you're in stage 1 of amnesia and inside your body is the level at which you're, sort of arguing with your reality and being immersed by all the feelings, and then wanting to like project it or take it out on somebody else, like, because it's happening to you and you're angry about it or whatever, right? So we have all these kind of wars and all this stuff happening because we're operating at a level of consciousness that doesn't understand who we really are. Now, when we go into the next level of consciousness, a lot of healers and people are trying to spiritual bypass it. Like, oh, everything's just fine, and like they'll totally disconnect from like what's happening because it's all just this big picture, and we can just totally bypass it because it feels better out there anyway, and we'll just ignore the fact that we're in a human body right now experiencing this. Oh, I'll have another lifetime, kind of thing. Like, it's not that big a deal. And I catch myself saying things like that all the time. Then the next part is to be embodied. And that's the fusion of the two, is to say, I am a vulnerable human being and I am a divine essence that is eternal. I am both. And in this tender, vulnerable human experience I'm having now, as I relate with my heart with other people, and as this consciousness raises to where we all get to this awareness, what happens now is a vulnerable exchange of humanity, between different agents of humanity, like Andy to Kerri and Kerri to, my partner. And it's like we are able to share with sort of a sense of awe this human diversity and human experience without needing to control it or shame it or say it's wrong or blame it, which means that we don't need to create wars over it anymore. You know, we don't need to punish each other over it.
Yeah, that would be great.
So we're still having the human drama, but we transcended it.
Yeah. It's not, it's not a soap opera drama. It's just the experience, and we're realizing we're having an experience, and it doesn't trigger us and cause us to fight back and react to each other like we have.
Or like if it does cause a trigger, like the emotion arises and you just look at the person in front of you and go, wow, I'm feeling so much stuff about this right now. And then you can have a conversation about, I'm feeling this and I'm feeling that. And the other person can say, oh, I really witnessed you feeling this and that, and I'm feeling this. And it's more about the discovery of it than about like you're responsible for me feeling this way kind of thing.
Yeah, right. So yeah, if every human being is so in the moment that, right, we're never fighting a war because, well, that's past. That's another moment. Like we're right here now, and I'm feeling you're upset, or I'm feeling you're scared, or whatever it is, instead of hiding it, denying it, and then
denying it.
Yeah.
That's exactly the word. So I've been looking at my gene keys lately. So it's another modality for understanding yourself. And I'm just learning this modality, so I'm not an expert in it. But genekeys.com is this teaching, and I love it. I looked at my chart, and they actually, the person who runs this made little audio clips of my key points on my chart. And one of mine has to do with opinion. Opinion and denial. So it's so interesting because on our planet, one of the questions I had since I came here, and of course I have it because it's in my chart, this nagging thing that I just keep looking at, that I just keep hooking my attention, is how can people be so mean to each other? Like, what's the matter with people? Like, why do they do these things? And how can they hurt somebody that way? And how can you like murder somebody? Or how can you rape somebody? How could you even just like pinch somebody? Like, how could you do any of those things? Like, what is wrong with people? And that's been my inquiry, like since I showed up with all this argument in my early life. Like, how do people hurt each other? And it's through denial. There's a part of the human psychology that denies the hurtful thing. It denies that the person's an agent of hurt. And that denial is what allows people to keep doing it, because they're not feeling it. They're not allowing themselves to realize that they're hurting themselves, because we're all one. We're all connected.
Yeah. So the more the separation and the creating of tribes and different every difference we try to make between us and humans is giving us more ability to deny we're the same or that we're connected in any way.
Yes, it's creating a situation that says, well, you can't possibly understand me. Well, and you're right, in this state of consciousness that you're choosing to embody, where you're in your egoic self, sure, there's denial of the divine. There's denial of who you really are. There's denial of basic humanity at that point, from that level of consciousness. But on the other side, if you keep ascending and growing and evolving and having realizations and opening past this just third dimensional existence, and then re-embody, what happens is omnipotence, the realization of omnipotence. So from omnipotence, you're connected with all that is, and you are, and everybody else that's connected with omnipotence also knows. So there's no hiding anything. There's no denying anything anymore, because the truth is known. There is no lying anymore, because the truth is self-evident. Everyone's connected to it. There's no more need for that. So denial only lives in a state of consciousness of polarity and opinion and division and judgment. That's the only place it lives.
Is the second wave that you write about, is that a wave of more people, the collective consciousness of humanity rising above to like a second or another level?
Yeah, it's actually referring to, yes, on many levels. It has, so what I'm getting right now is it has many different meanings. It has, as many of these things do, they have like multiple reference points. So on the one reference point, it's referring to volunteers to Earth that came here from across the galaxy that have gone through this process in other places, okay? So like other planets, other lifetimes, other places have already gone through this ascension process in other contexts, and so have expertise on this, and so came to the planet to assist the planet in as that ascension process. And so many of us have had difficult experiences in our lives up till now, so that we would have the embodiment of those challenging experiences, be able to bring divinity to it, and then speak from a divine place about those challenges rather than from a wounded place. And so I believe that you're also one of these people. So the work on that, if people are interested in finding out more about that, would be Dolores Cannon invented a process called QHHT, and that process is quantum hypnosis healing technique. And in this process, she brings people in a deep state of hypnosis where she's communicating with their soul and asking questions. And during this, I don't know, interviews with thousands of people, she found a pattern of people saying, oh, I'm with the first wave. Oh, I'm with the second wave. And like just randomly saying this. So she started charting it and asking, like, okay, are you from this first wave or the second wave? And so she compiled this data, and she's written a bunch of books. So anyway, that's something you could research if you're interested in it. But so there are volunteers of the planet, and you kind of know who you are once you start hearing this. You're like, I think I'm part of that second wave thing, because you've been feeling the call to purpose for like the last couple of years, like the last 2 to 3 years. You've been feeling like this urgency, like, oh, I got to get some stuff, like something has to happen now. Like I know it's important, and I better get doing it. And I don't know what it is. I got to figure that out. So. That's you, if you've been feeling that way. Then also the next layer is, yes, it's a second coming, right? So this has been prophesied, that there'd be a second coming of Christ consciousness in one terminology, but across the planet there's different terminologies being used. So this terminology is really only European or North American centric, this particular terminology, because in other places in the planet different terminology is being used. But this is the Great Awakening. This is the opportunity that many of us came to the planet to experience, this glorious experience of being able to bring our divinity into and our physicality into harmony.
No, so one of the things I do is work with the Akashic records, and anytime someone has asked something about their experience, then it's like almost universal that you chose to be here at this time. Mm-hmm. And so that is every human that's alive right now part of the second wave, or is the second wave on top of choosing to be here to begin with?
I think it's on top of, because I think that there are, like I said, well, if you just look at a classroom, like look at any classroom, in the classroom there are students, and in the classroom there is usually at least a teacher, right? So the second wave you could think of as the messengers or the teachers, souls who have already gone through this process elsewhere. And then potentially in the student population would be souls who want to experience this for the first time or over a course of lifetimes, because they might not all get it this lifetime. All right. It's like, this is a complex thing to go through. So not everyone's going to like get it this one time, like in your physical body right now, you might be able to get a portion of this teaching and understand it. And it might take you a couple more lifetimes to fully complete the process. Like it might not just happen right now in the next 10 years or so, like it just might not happen. But this is an accelerated time. This is an accelerated opportunity. So souls that are looking, have desired to accelerate their learning process or go through this unique experience, yes, they all chose. Everybody who's here right now chose to be here. Let's just say that. Okay. There's nobody here now that didn't choose to be here.
Yeah, no one's here by mistake.
Nobody's here by force. That doesn't happen. This is a benevolent universe. You're here by choice.
So you're saying it's not going to happen overnight or even the next 10 years, but you also spoke of there's an urgency to wake up. So
there is an urgency.
What's the urgency?
The urgent feeling was to get to this place, because 2020 is a revealing year, as you've noticed. So this is where I think astrology is a really helpful tool for navigating, because it's written in the stars. Okay, so it's already written in the stars. The stars tell us everything it's already predestined, like what we're going to be experiencing now, because time is all happening at now. So in essence, what's happening now has already happened. That's why people get deja vu. It's not, so you can still make a different choice, but there's still multiple concurrent realities happening that have already been predestined. It's all happening now. And then I think it's an organism that can actually evolve still within that. So again, that gets very complex, and I want to go down too many rabbit holes, but let's bring it back in, White Eagle. Okay, right back in. And when I say White Eagle, it's because that's my guide that likes to talk about these things. So back into this conversation, 2020 is a pivotal point astrologically for the lessons we all agree to have together. And so, like, I knew that 2020 was going to be a big year back when I was 15 because I had a premonition about it. So then when it happened, I was all excited leading up to this year because I had one idea about what Great Awakening meant. Like, I was like, woohoo, we're going to be like free, like hippies, and we're going to be having fun and like doing plant medicine, and it's going to be great, right? That's just like my idea that I had. And then it happened. And I knew all the systems were going to come crumbling down because I'd already heard that. So I knew that was true. But I didn't know how it was going to happen or what it would look. I had not even like contemplated what that meant. And now as we see it, it's like there's so much humanity in it. There's so much tenderness in it. There's so much vulnerability in it. There's so much beauty in it, and there's so much chaos in it. There's so much discord. There's just so much like grit inside this shift to integrity. So we're witnessing collectively the shadows that have permeated our consciousness on this planet for thousands of years, and that we are collectively and have already collectively decided do not serve us. And we're not going forward with these paradigms. We're releasing them. And the only way to release anything is to witness it with love. So here we are witnessing with love a lot of suffering. And so most of the people on the planet, when you look out on social media, even for example, you can tell who's witnessing with love and who's witnessing with judgment. And that's the key as to where somebody is on their spiritual journey, and whether they're a teacher or whether they're a student or whether they're on the path to becoming a better teacher and they just need a little support. So you can see the range of where people are, and that will give you an idea of soul age and their ability, in your own ability to, on your own soul path, to process what's happening.
You use in your book and teachings, and a lot of other people do too, the term of an old soul.
Yes.
So is an old soul someone that's got the experience to be aligned with love as opposed to judgment? Is that part of it?
It's being able to be aligned with life, which is a frequency of love for sure. And it's being able to harness the energies in a beneficial direction. Is the older soul you are, the more interested you are in creating magic and beauty, which is in alignment and harmony with the universe. And the more that you're beginning this process, the more you want to differentiate and sort of express yourself and, create some friction. On this planet, we've got that opportunity, right? It's an interesting experience, and there's nothing wrong with any of it. I want to say that, like, everyone's at where they're at on the journey. But you can clearly see that a soul that's new on this planet might engage in murder because it's a new experience and haven't had it yet, right? And so don't know what that feels like. So then engage in murder and then have the repercussions of that experience and feel that experience, and then the lifetimes that ripples out to, and all the people that it ripples out to, the ripple effect of that choice, being felt and then analyzed, from a soul level perspective. And then, because after we leave the physical plane, we're doing a soul curriculum review. Like, what did we learn? So you can kind of see how an older soul already had that experience, so doesn't need to repeat it. So it's just, it's a process.
So you mentioned your guide, White Eagle, and I see in your face sometimes that you're kind of, are you receiving things?
Yeah.
In this mode now? Okay.
Yeah. So, can you feel it? I mean, it's like, it's a lot of light that comes in, and it gets me kind of high, and then I'm not really thinking. I'm just sort of like letting this energy speak through me.
Now, is this something, so channeling White Eagle, is this something that just happened one day? Is this something you had to like work up to and took practice, or how was that experience?
It's been a process. I talk about it in the book, but at one point I received an energy through the back of my skull, where my skull meets my neck, which is a place called the mouth of God. And I received that energy because I had been visiting with, I'd been at the Cherokee replica village in the Smoky Mountains looking for my ancestry and wanting to be connected. And I was very sad and I was crying and I just felt like this longing, like this deep, like grief that I needed to connect with this aspect of my ancestry. And I didn't know how, because in my genealogy, my ancestor just passed for white. So we dropped that part, it got covered up. It got whitewashed, so to speak. So I was looking for that connection. And what happened was, I was asking around for a shaman. I was like, is there like a Cherokee medicine man or a shaman or somebody that can help me? Because I feel this desperate need and I don't know how to get connected to it. I finally got led to somebody that was working one of the exhibit booths, and he said, okay, I'll talk to you, in the parking lot after my shift, because he could see how I was crying and I was just a mess. I was a hot mess. And he said, okay, I'll help you, white lady. I know he didn't say that. But so I'm heading out to the parking lot, and on the way out, I felt this, like someone had flung a softball of energy through the back of my head. Now, whether he did it or whether this energy just found me because it was the right timing, I don't know. But what I'll say is that moment, I felt like I was being expanded from the inside out. Like it was just like this growth of this ball of light inside of me that just, I was seeing the trees breathe. Like I had to sit down. I was very dizzy and disoriented. And this, like, seeing the trees breathe thing, like, went on for like a week or two, like it was just profound, the way that I was perceiving in new ways. And then that began this healing journey with this aspect of self, which was a Cherokee medicine man on the Trail of Tears that was escorting his people, through the winter, and people were dying and he was grieving and he was lost and feeling responsible for being a peace chief and recommending peace. And he was feeling responsible for the death of all of his people. So it was a lot of grief and a lot of burden. And it took me a good 6 years to reconcile and heal that aspect of myself, through a lot of intensive deep dive work with a lot of different healers and coaches and on my medicine path. So that, that experience has been very profound. And that's the experience, really. There's been so many other signposts and markers of his presence in my life. And I knew all the pieces. You know how you know the pieces, but then you lose the pieces because you're just like, it comes up and you're like, wow, it's really profound. I'll never forget that. And then if you don't write it down, it goes under the surface, or like you write it down in the journal and you never look at it again. And so then you forget, but then like later on you get reminded. That's what kind of my journey with White Eagle. And right before I published this book, I had been channeling the book, but I didn't know who I was channeling it from. So I just was like, oh, it's Great Spirit, and that's who I'm channeling it from. So like the week before I was supposed to publish the book, I went into a deep meditation dive in a plant ceremony with some plant medicine. And in that journey, I came face to face with White Eagle, literally in my, like, sitting up face to face with White Eagle. And he's like, okay, now let me connect all the dots for you because you clearly forgot some things. And like dot, 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 dot. This went on for hours. It felt like just all the connections. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that was really real. Oh, forgot about that. Oh, okay, that was important. Okay, so like all of these things. And he said, okay, now you should probably put my name on the cover because some people actually know who I am and nobody knows who you are. So change your name, or just put that on the cover, that you're channeling from me. So that's what I did.
And does White Eagle show up just when it's time to write things down for the masses, or do you have personal experiences as well?
I have personal experiences with White Eagle shows up. That's why I love doing these interviews, actually, Andy, because I feel such a harmony. White Eagle always shows up for these interviews. And so it's like my secret way of making sure I get time with White Eagle. Because he shows up every single time for these interviews. And if I teach anything, or I do a workshop, or I do healings or anything like that, it's like White Eagle's right there. And it gets me high and I feel really good. Like I'm so happy right now. I feel great. I'm blissed out because like totally White Eagle's right inside of me right now. And it feels really good and I love it. And so this is my happy spot, actually. Like as long as we can talk, it's great. But really, like outside of this kind of space, it's harder for me to access it, actually, because he only, it's like here's why. And I've asked him about it. I'm like, how come you don't show up all the time? It's because I'm having a unique personal experience. There is a beauty in having an experience as simply the human being, as Kerri Hummingbird. There's a beauty and a divinity in having that experience. And White Eagle no way wants to rob me of that experience by always being present, right? So it's a dance. It's like when it's pertinent and when it's important, White Eagle shows up and is totally present with me. And when not, then it's time for me to be with me. It's time for Kerri to be with Kerri. And so that's really how it works.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Anytime that's anyone that can connect with a guide and ascended master, whatever it feels like they're connecting, if that entity just moved in forever, well, now you're not you, and they kind of,
Yeah.
it just, I get it. Doesn't, I get that they're, and I'm sure he's up to more things than only talking to you.
He is up to more things. And actually, there's more guides that want to work with me. So I need to create space for that. So last night was actually a big discussion around that because for the last year, since that book published, the second wave, I was tapped on the shoulder by White Buffalo Calf Woman to write the next book. But I love White Eagle so much. It's been hard for me to let go and really invite in White Buffalo Calf Women. But this work is also very different, and it's worked with me in a different way that, oh, here she comes. So I can feel it now. So it feels really different to me, and it feels very vulnerable, and it feels fragile because of my own wounding with my mother wound, to work with the divine feminine. And so that energy feels really different to me, and it feels very vulnerable and tender. And so it's been a long trusting process working with her over the last year in private and with groups to be able to finish this book that she wants me to write and to invite it in and be able to channel it cleanly and clearly. And so only like last night did I finally say, okay, surrender my vessel. Like you can teach through me. I welcome you. I love you. I trust you. You're welcome in my being. However you want to show up to share your message, I welcome you in.
So
do you feel that difference?
Yeah. I mean, it's
really different energy.
You feel it from you. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Your entire being
it just shifted.
Is different. Yeah. So you're able to you've been gifted, able, whatever it is, to tune into aspects of divine masculinity and divine femininity. Is any part of that kind of the message that everyone needs to hear? Like, are we supposed to be using both? Are people just too much one or the other, or think you can't be, a mingling of that?
Yeah, and what I'm really feeling right now from my heart is that a lot of this has to do with a choice that was made several thousand years ago on this planet to explore the divine masculine and all of the polarities of that energy. And what's happened is that if we have become very imbalanced, because the masculine moves through the mind, and there's nothing wrong with the masculine moving through the mind, but it's a different experience to move from the heart. And so now we're shifting into the age of Aquarius, where we'll be able to move much more through the heart, and we'll be learning about moving through the heart from divine feminine energies and teachers. And so we need to be able to trust that this is a new movement, a new classroom emerging on Earth, and it's going to teach us many, many, many things. But we have to be able to access our hearts in order to move into this new space. So this is why in my journey, the way it's manifesting for me is, these sort of entities, right? These ascended masters. In my consciousness, that's something that feels comfortable for me. So it's coming through that way. I don't know if it'll come through that way for everybody. I think everyone will have their own experience of the energies, but there's an energy to it. There's a very different energy of the divine feminine than there is of the divine masculine. And they're both beautiful and they're both pertinent. But what we're doing now is we're moving into opening from the heart. And the heart wisdom has a lot more to do with what we've been talking about today. So, and all the journey that I've been on as Kerri Hummingbird has been opening up to this other aspect, this heart aspect of connection through all the cells of my body. It's an embodiment teaching. It's about being fully present And it's about being in your heart and also being in your senses and your feeling. And it's about the energy healing we've been discussing. And it's about connection with all that is. It's understanding there's plant wisdom. It's understanding there's wisdom in the mountains. There's mountain spirits. There's unseen forces. There's just so much complexity to the divine feminine. The divine feminine is about complexity. It's about the unfolding. It's about the nuances. It's about the multiplicities, all the varieties, the diversity, and to understand that we're all part of this beautiful, like, rainbow light spectrum of diversity of experience and gifts and knowing, and we can play together and harmonize together in that space without having to control anything. So the divine masculine is much more about control and containers and boundaries, and this energy that's coming in is much more fluid. It moves it, and in order to move with it, you've got to come into your heart. The only way to move it with this energy is to be coming from your heart where you're guided, because in trust, coming from your heart and trust. So what's the key issue? What's the key core wound that keeps people from trusting the divine feminine? Is the mother wound. So when we made the choice to explore the divine masculine thousands of years ago, what happened was that we had many fables and many different traditions that downplayed the feminine, or that shamed the feminine, or that projected negativity onto the feminine, or dismissed the feminine, right? So shut off the heart and not feel things, and denial, and all of these things have been part of that divine masculine journey too, so that we could really appreciate what it's like to live from the mind. But now that we're coming into this divine feminine experience, we need to open all that back up again. We need to heal those core wounds. So this is why you're seeing the rise of the Me Too movement and femininity. And then this is also why men are feeling like, hey, I need some of that too. Like, I don't want to be stuck in my mind anymore. I don't want to be to blame for everything anymore. I don't want to have to control everything anymore, provide for everything anymore. I don't want all that responsibility. So, I'm seeing my son with his long hair and his long nails, and he's defying all of the sort of stereotypes that men are supposed to be, right? It's like, no, take care of me. I want to be held. I want to be loved. I want to be supported. I want you to see me and my vulnerability. I want you to hold me when I'm crying. I want to be able to cry. I want to be able to feel. I don't want to have to be strong for you anymore. I want to be fluid. I want to feel my feelings. So this is a big time of shift. And in order to fully move into this, we've got to release the past. So we're seeing a big purge. Everything we're seeing this year is a purge.
Yeah. So I'm happily seeing more and more men every day talk about wanting to get more in their heart and be willing to feel. And the whole point of I was guided to make this show. But I'm seeing the opposite side get louder. Every day, multiple times a day, I'll see on social media, or I'll get an email from a man that is just angry and scared. I read scared to me, that people believing masculinity is under attack and men can't be men and everything, and feeling that victim energy. And so is that really people that are afraid to feel, or haven't dealt with a mother wound, or just a multitude of other symptoms? Is that what's going on?
It's very possible, and every situation is unique. So this would be a vast generalization, but there's a possibility that in a person's life, for example, I'll take my own son. So when I, in my own consciousness as a woman, I felt like a victim. I felt helpless. I felt like I needed to be taken care of. And this is a message that many women have been given over the last thousands of years, that we, somehow we need to be taken care of by a man, and that the ultimate goal is to get a man. And this masculine presence is what makes everything okay for you. And so I certainly have experienced that in my life. And as I became a mother, I started realizing that there was something really deep and powerful within me that was at odds with this control structure. And that I had different wisdom to share, but I couldn't back it up with studies and mind content. I just knew it from my heart. I just knew it from my womb. I knew something different. But I also didn't trust myself. because of all of this mind conditioning and the paradigm we've been living in from the masculine mind, I didn't know how to trust myself from my heart. So what ended up happening was that I went through all the psychotherapy, right? Because it must be broken. There's something wrong with me. So now my son is picking up that I feel that there's something wrong with me. And he's picking up that he's watching the dynamic of the masculine, controlling or saying you're nuts or you're crazy or don't know what you're talking about, dismissing the feminine knowledge. He's seeing that and he's feeling that. And because he feels aligned with me, he's feeling angry about it. So now it's hard for him to embrace his masculinity. Now my other son aligned more with his dad. So now he's feeling challenged by my power because he sees my power challenges his father. And then in fact, we split up. So now there's all this psychological content roaming around. You can see how complex it is. So one son feels he needs to defend his mother from masculine control that's critical and cruel in some ways. And so he can't embrace his own masculinity. And the other son feels like his father has been wounded by, this wild, uncontrollable, wild feminine. And so he can't embrace his mother because he feels for his father. So there's a lot in here to unpack. And so this is going to be a time of unpacking a lot of very challenging content. And then there are some themes. I believe that's a theme that runs through it. And so, each person could look for that theme in their own life and see, is that a theme for me? Does that live within me? And that's a starting place. But there would be a lot of complex nuances in the conversation. And the alcoholism definitely feeds into this, because alcoholism and any kind of addiction is something to fill that hole of void of not having the love of who? The love of your mother. The love of your father, but the love of your mother, because your mother is the one that birthed you. You were in your mother's body, cooking and stewing in her web of reality for 10 months before you came out. That's a powerful experience. You're forever tied to your mother. So depending on your relationship with your mother and how you reacted with her is going to tell a lot about your relationship with the feminine and about your relationship with the masculine, because what was her relationship with the masculine? So this is why it's healing the mother wound, because we're all birthed inside a mother for 10 months. We're birthed inside the mother's web for 10 months. It's powerful.
So for the second wave to take hold, for the age of Aquarius, for what's written in the stars to truly be manifested on Earth, is it really up to every angry person, I wouldn't even just say just men, every angry person that doesn't want to change, that doesn't want to explore their wounds, that doesn't want to grow? Is that what we're all up against? Or will every human get to the point that they can't take that anymore and they open up with curiosity and a willingness to experience something else?
Well, your journey is speaking to it, right?
Yeah, but I want it done.
You
said it's urgent.
It is. And so the urgency was to be here now and to have the consciousness. So the urgency is not to fix anything. The urgency is to be willing and to be curious and open, because we already are here now. So we're at the year, we're here.
So look, it happened to us. We both have the experience of life making us open up to experience a different viewpoint of life, to have different experiences. So is kind of the tipping point for everybody when the majority of human beings have hit their own rock bottom and have willing to, there's got to be a better way?
Yes. And let's just encourage, I'll just put a little encouragement out there, because there's two ways to learn. And we all know this. There's the easy way and the hard way. We just got given the easy way. It didn't feel easy, but this was Mother Earth's way of giving us an easy path to having just enough encouragement to face our shadows and to dive into the spiritual journey, because this indeed is the spiritual journey. We are moving out of the mind and into the heart, and we are moving into the spiritual journey now. There's no avoiding that. And if you try to avoid it, you'll have the hard way. So we just got the easy way. I want to reinforce that. 2.5 months of the easy way. Didn't feel very easy, and some people are still in it and they would say, that's easy? Yes, that's the easy path. So if you don't want the hard path, it's better to learn from the easy path and start the journey. However you want to start it, it can start with a simple declaration. I am willing to open to my soul and learn. I am willing to let go of all I think I am and discover who I really am. Lead me to the next step.
Yeah, letting go is, I think, when looking back, is the biggest part. Then it can be the scariest part. Like even when my identity was, oh, I'm suicidal and depressed, and I didn't think that was something I dealt with. I thought that's what I was. So to be willing to go beyond that was terrifying, even though I didn't like being that. And so is that why even the easy way gets resisted? Because when you're in it, you don't know it's the easy way. But is it just being resistant to any change, resistant to any mirror being forcing you to kind of look at yourself?
Yeah, well, it's your ego has your, you buy the tail. And it, I want to say it's not, there's a lot of ego shaming and blaming that goes on, and I'm not congruent with that, because the egoic consciousness is there to protect you. It's a autopilot system. It's an autopilot system to make sure you don't blow yourself up by accident, right? So the only way that autopilot system is going to release itself is by trusting you to manually operate it with love. So the way that it trusts that you're going to manually operate it with love is by your dedication and your practice and your devotion to yourself. That's why it's the spiritual path. It's not about going to a weekend workshop. It's not about getting one energy healing. It's about dedicating yourself to the rest of your life and the rest of your lives to come to discover yourself from a new angle of your higher consciousness, of your divinity embodied, of your love, of your heart. That's the invitation.
Does the human experience exist so that we take the spiritual journey?
The human experience exists because we are experiencing ourselves all the time through new discoveries. Because we have the capacity to create anything together that we want. This entire world is a fabrication. It's an agreement. It's a co-creation at an epic scale. We're all co-creating this together. We all agreed that there would be computers and microphones at this point in time. We all agreed that there would be trees and that there would be mountains. We all agreed that there would be a coronavirus to wake us all up. We all agreed at all of this. And so the surrender is the journey to the experience that's already been agreed upon. And it continues to evolve with our conscious participation. So the conscious participation part is just about seeing it from a new angle, like we talked about at the beginning. So when you're embodied, knowing your divinity inside your body, all kinds of things can be happening around you, and you could be witnessing them from a place of curiosity and wonder rather than a place of fear. So that's the invitation. It's not that all this, it's not that you're never going to have any more challenges in your life or anything like that. Because why would you want to have a life without challenges? Why would you want to come here and be in a body with like nothing to learn, nothing to explore, nothing to discover? So some of these things, it's about realizing the perfection in the imperfections. Like the path that you walked, Andy, the path that you walked with butting your head up against that wall and trying to die and not being able to die and just like, dang, why can't I die? I gotta figure this out. That's a perfection in itself because it led you to a place of such tremendous joy that just radiates out of you, and knowing now the beauty of this life experience. Look how much joy you can feel and ongoing excitement because of that realization. That was hard won.
So everyone's going to win their hard-won battle of realization that it's easier than they thought. Unless they resist the easy way, then it gets harder than they thought.
Yeah, and collectively we are in a process of opening now, right? Which is why it's helpful to have beings on the planet who have already been through this rodeo in other places, in terms of surrendering to higher self, who are able to open their pineal gland, who are able to open their chakras, who are able to trust, who are able to be present. This is all important now because it changes the energy of the field that enables more people who are more resistant, maybe haven't been down this road. It gives them access to this field of consciousness. So the more of us that are capable of accessing a deeper place, the more that field grows and strengthens, and it gives access to more people to have access to that depth for themselves, which is hard to access from less experienced states of consciousness. Let's just say that.
Cool. Yeah, we talked about it when I was on Soul Nectar with you, and you're hitting it here too. I remember when I realized that, the coronavirus is the opportunity for everything to shift and to let go of the things that aren't working. And I was like, wow, what a nice, surprisingly gentle way. But only if we let it do its job.
Only if we let it do its job. It gave us an opportunity to slow down and some people are still in it, to slow down and ask the questions, the big questions. Is this life serving me? Am I happy? It gave space and peace. And, it also is a construct that reveals many things. Okay. So we talked about this before with the masks and all of this. It gives us a chance to see how the human brain is architected to create groupings and division, and then how the human brain and body responds to fear to create conflict and discord, and how quickly it can all happen. I mean, just the conversation around the masks is a good example. So 2.5 months ago, we did not have in our cultural lexicon anything about a mask. But now we've got a cultural lexicon around the mask with two interpretations, almost like the Republicans and the Democrats. Like, it's so fierce, this contest between what it means. Half the people saying the mask means you're a sheep if you wear a mask and you're being controlled and you're being, you're just walking to your death. And then the other half says, oh no, the mask means that I care about other people and I want to protect them. But the mask is not any meaning. The mask is just a mask until you give it a meaning. And then you have a meaning that you feel passionate about, and then that gets reaffirmed by other people, and then you start to group according to people that believe the way you believe, which is confirmation bias. And now you use that mask as a way to shame and blame other people from both sides. So this is a demonstration of the human psychology. It's a very useful tool to see how the brain works and to see how people work in collaboration using the brain. It's a perfect tool to demonstrate. And the mask means nothing. It's just a mask.
Well, I have...
I'm really dreamy with this energy, by the way. Like, this whole...
I know you are. I feel like we can keep going for hours and hours. We could keep
energy
just going.
Is like... This is the first time I've channeled her, actually. It's really awesome. Yeah. Okay, I dig it. You can come back.
So that next book is going to be coming pretty quick?
I think it will, now that I'm accepting it. Yeah. Yes, it's taken a little while to get to this place where I could hear her, because she's much more quiet. The divine feminine is much more quiet than the masculine.
Yes, is that kind of why chaos has to ensue before people would listen better?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. The feminine energy has a lot of range of expression. But what I found with channeling is that only now am I able to I actually really feel her. I hear that it's very clear. I'm surrendered to it. It's very peaceful and loving and gentle. And it's beautiful. And this is not something I could have done even a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't used to think it was a cool thing, but I'm glad now there's always more. We can go deeper, we can have more experiences. I was like, we mentioned earlier, I went to that week-long seminar. Why isn't everything perfect? Well, why am I still feeling like crap? But
yeah, she just popped out. So that's amazing. Wow, I feel really high right now, in a whole different way.
So different than the high of of having
Yeah.
her energy.
Yeah. Like it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me. This channeling thing is so interesting. Yeah, they
So,
have very different energies.
so did channeling, is that something that just happened to you once, or?
It started happening to me in healing sessions. Like
Okay.
I was practicing being a healer and doing healing sessions through my training with the Four Winds Light Body School. And as I was practicing doing the healings, it's a certain amount of surrender, because I became aware that it's important to be a hollow bone during healings and not like project things on your client, right? And not get too involved in the story or like place yourself in it. And I also realized that a lot of times the person that would get sent to me as a client would be working on something that I also needed to hear. And so there was a mutuality to it. And over the times that I've done these healings, I've just gotten better and better and better, because I've done hundreds, maybe even 1,000 healings. I don't even know how many healings I've done. I've lost track. So I've done a lot of healing sessions with people. And every healing session that as a healer you do with somebody, it should be evolving you as well, right? Like decrusting you of your human stuff. So that's when really, like, at a certain point, it shifted over from feeling like anybody needed to be fixed into a space now as a healer where I realize people are perfect just the way they are. And all I'm doing is helping them decrust something from their being that they're ready to let go of. That's pretty much it. And then getting some realizations, which are always really cool to have. So ever since that process, then this channeling thing started to happen. Like people started telling me they saw an Indian man inside of me when they looked up from the table at me. And then he would show up when I do drum journeys, and I would see him, or he would say, let me have the drumstick. I would say, okay, you can have the drumstick. So he's been working with me for a while to relax me and like, okay, it's okay. You can trust me. And now it's taken me a while to work with White Buffalo Calf Women as well.
Cool. Yeah, I knew this conversation would be pretty boundaryless, and I think we fulfilled
I didn't realize
that.
how. Yeah, but yes, it's powerful. I hope everyone's still with us out there.
Yeah, like I say, if we've talked about things that just went kind of over your head and you're still with us, like great, because there's nothing that I do that I didn't have to hear about multiple times before I was finally willing to explore it. And if you're listening all this time and you think we're just talking about like kindergarten level stuff on your journey, that's great too.
Yeah, it's cool too.
Yeah. But yeah,
it's all welcome.
Yeah, every experience helps us. Like when one soul grows through experience, everyone grows, right? Because we truly are connected in multiple ways. So yeah, good, bad, or indifferent, keep having new experiences, and eventually, please decide to keep doing the experiences that feel good, that reward you some way, that have you being of service to others, and you discover that feels good, right? Whatever it might be. But
enjoy the journey nonetheless.
Oh yeah. And did you enjoy your journey for your early years?
Pieces of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Pieces of it. Like it wasn't all bad, and even my marriage, it wasn't all bad. It was, we had beautiful moments to share, and we traveled a lot together. We had a lot of fun, so there was a lot of joy in that relationship. There's just that there was also a lot of the other, it's like the crunchy, like we're in right now. Like I'm sure people have had lots of pleasurable experiences, and then 2020 hit, and like it was tough. It's tough so far, but it can shift.
Yeah. There's always more, and there's a big point in my life that I thought that was what a horrible thing to say, but yeah, there's more. If you don't like today, hey, there's more coming tomorrow.
Keep going. It's part of the puzzle. You won't ever find out what that puzzle piece was for unless you get past it, through it, to the other side, and keep going to the place where you reach what I'm talking about, like this state of samadhi, or this state of like realization of your divinity. And when you get there, that's the gold, because then you can look back on all the other stuff that happened and reclaim it from joy. So don't give up until you get to that spot. Yeah. Keep going. Don't quit until you get there, because that's the gold. Like you wouldn't want to have done all this hard work only to lose it and not get the glory of it. Like don't give up before you get the glory.
Cool. So, Kerri, what's the best way for people to learn more about you and discover your books?
Well, my website is kerrihummingbird.com. That's Kerri, hummingbird.com. And my books are linked from there. The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama, and Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love. Those are both available at Amazon.com and linkable from my website. And if you want to just chat for a few minutes, there's a link to book a 15-minute chat or a discovery call if you feel more invested. And I have a free game for everybody. I love games. Do you like games, Andy?
Yeah.
They're so fun. So this game is called the Love Mastery Game. And it's an oracle game, but it doesn't tell you what's going to happen because that would spoil things. It's just there to help you figure out, like, why is the thing happening? Like, what is going on? Why is this thing happening for me? And it does so in a way that helps you understand, like, the love principles that we're all learning here on Earth School, and the principles of mastery, like the being states, like being peaceful, for example. That's a being state. Like, those being states might be what you're learning through this challenge that you're having. And it also teaches you about Earth allies, because we, like I said, we're moving into, or actually, like I channeled, we're moving into a space where we're going to learn a lot more about the allies we have on Earth in terms of the rocks and the minerals and the plants and the animals, that they each have something to teach us. So this game is a starting point for that discovery. And so for people who haven't, like, found their spirit animal or things like that.
Cool. Awesome. And we'll have links to everything that Kerri is up to at realmenfeel.org in the blog, the show notes for this episode. We'll get you to connect you with her podcast or books, everything. You can dig deeper and see if your journey aligns with her journey, and you journey together, right? Cool. And wherever you're listening to Real Men Feel, I welcome and invite you to be an ally of Real Men Feel. And you do that by subscribing, giving a review, a rating, sharing this with somebody else. And through all of this and beyond, be good to yourselves. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Contact us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Please subscribe to this podcast and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.